Wales is a land rich in myth and legend. There's even a red dragon on its flag. 80 years ago, different weapons of war crossed these skies as thousands of aircrew from multiple countries trained here during World War II. Wales was a strategic location for Allied powers, its varied landscape perfectly suited for military training exercises, and it was an environment away from main areas of conflict and enemy bombing raids. Until today, I had never visited Wales, and now I'm here to discover how an aircraft vanished during World War II and emerges occasionally ghost-like from the sea. Some call it the Loch Ness of aviation. The main hangar of Lambeter Airport. This airfield was built specifically by the RAF in 1941 to support the UK's war efforts against the Germans. In here, there'd be Spitfires, Mustangs, Typhoons, Ansons, Lysanders and Martinets, all playing a pivotal role in keeping Nazi Germany at bay. US 8th Air Force squadrons arrived here on these runways in 1942, bringing with them what would prove to be the most successful twin-engine fighter of the war, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning.
Their one purpose, the sole reason for their existence, is to knock enemy planes out of the sky. They are P-38s, and they rank with the fastest and best fighters in the air today.
Among the pilots of the 14th Fighter Group was 24-year-old Robert Elliott from North Carolina. He was a long way from home and about to embark on a mission that did not go as planned. It all started here. On September 27th in 1942, Second Lieutenant Robert Elliott took off in his P-38 from this airfield on a gunnery practice mission. Mid-flight, he experienced a double-engine failure and he decided to make a crash landing on Harlech Beach. Elliott survived, but the aircraft got engulfed by sand and sea. Like all too many Allied airmen, Robert Elliott's war ended abruptly when he was lost in action in North Africa less than a year later. Many wonder how an aircraft the size of 2 school buses could crash here in Harlech and just vanish. During the war, these beaches were forbidden territory for civilians, and news outlets such as magazines and newspapers were not allowed to report on military accidents. And that's why the P-38 was able to lay hidden before it was first uncovered. No one locally knew that an American fighter plane was buried here, until the sands of time chose to reveal their secret. The Maid of Harlech, named after a Welsh castle, first surfaced in 1977, more than 30 years after the war. Largely intact and remarkably corrosion-free. Looters sadly stripped it of a wingtip, a propeller, and an instrument panel. The sea swiftly reclaimed her. Then, 30 years on, a local walking along the beach spotted a wingtip above the water's surface. The International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery verified it was the Maid of Harlech, the UK's only surviving P-38. Again, it submerged and disappeared. Until the sea offered it up one more time. This third appearance led the Welsh government to grant the Maid of Harlech special protected status, threatening potential looters with imprisonment and hefty fines. The aircraft's exact location is kept a secret, but with today's favorable conditions, I'm hoping for a respectful glimpse. Do people often come here to look for the Maid of Harlech?
We have quite a few customers that come and really want to try and find the Maid of Harlech, but it's only been uncovered a small handful of times. Chances are slim, but we've got good weather today. The tides are just about right, so we'll go and see what we can find.
Okay, exciting.
Let's just make sure. Yeah, I'm going to have to snug this up quite a lot tighter. You never know who's had it on before.
So we're getting ready to take the boat off the coast and see if we can actually see the Maid of Harlech. Chances are super slim, but who knows? Phil Scott has been navigating these waters for 20 years.
We get whirlpools in here where the counter currents are and you get a whirlpool where you get the counter current running.
Dramatic tidal changes can see currents rise as much as 9 meters in just a few hours.
6 hours for the tide to go out. So this island, the house floods at high water. When you've got a big tide like this, it's such a dynamic environment.
Because of those tides, you can now understand why the Maid of Harlech is submerged most of the time, and how the sand and the sea can cover such a huge aircraft.
At the moment, it's high water. So, you know, this area of beach can be over where the Maid of Harlech is. But of course, and it's a secret to us at the moment, and it's a secret to everybody else.
If something massive would lay here right now, we would be able to see it.
Most of the time, the visibility is quite poor. So you'd be really lucky to get anything over 10 meters. In fact, less, 5 meters. So the fact that the water is not as clear as it is in other parts is part of why it stayed hidden for so long.
Robert Elliott would come in here with a double engine failure and ditch his plane in the water.
Yeah, he'd have been looking for an expanse of flat sand, going, there's a safe place. And of course, he got the plane down and he managed to walk away from the crash. Yeah. But of course, the plane gets stuck in that sand and almost impossible to recover.
Another mystery is why, after 80 plus years, a crashed airplane hasn't completely disintegrated.
Because it's not the water that corrodes it, it's the air.
Right.
And the moment you get air on it, so yes, the danger is if you leave it where it is and it's exposed by the tides and the sands have changed, then it's going to start falling apart an awful lot quicker. So you've got jeopardy. You either watch it fall apart or you try and preserve it. But yeah, it's difficult decisions to be made.
The cost of recovery would exceed most museum budgets. However, unlike the mythical inhabitant of Loch Ness, this last intact Lockheed P-38 Lightning helped battle the German Luftwaffe.
And in some ways, you know, awful events like the Second World War, you know, they're the things that we should keep in our minds in order to make sure it never happens again. So if it's used and the context is created around it, I'd prefer that there were things that were very real and tangible and kids can get hold of and the story around it is told, than maybe it just disappearing into the sands forever.
During World War II, thousands of aircrew from multiple countries trained here in Wales, and thousands would go on to lose their lives preserving a freedom that's still enjoyed today. In a land of castles and dragons, the Maid of Harlech still sleeps beneath the waves.